Hey everybody, I'm Amanda with DevExpress and welcome to 15.2 Launch Week and today's webinar, What's New for Windows Developers, presented by DevExpress Technical Evangelist Paul Usher and DevExpress CTO Julian Bucknall. Today's webinar will cover new products and features shipping inside our updated WinForms and WPF subscriptions. Thank you so much for joining us. I will now hand things over to Paul and Julian.
Thanks, Amanda, and good morning, everyone. And of course, good morning, Mr. Bucknall.
And a very good morning to you too. In fact, I believe it really is morning for you, just about.
Well, as usual.
Well, here in Colorado, we're warming up after a bitterly cold, snowy Thanksgiving weekend, and it's just in time for the heat of the DevExpress 15.2 release.
Well, Julian, I've said it before, but I love launch week, because I know how much work goes into each one of these releases. From the work the engineering teams do, to marketing, the tireless work of blogging and prepping for webinars like this. When it all comes together, it's just so much fun.
And is that the type of fun that involves pulling your hair out? In which case I totally agree, and I've saved a visit to the hairdresser.
Well, I could mention something about your receding hairline, but I probably shouldn't.
So, Paul?
Well, what is new in 15.2? Of course, today we're going to look at the Windows developer platforms, and that entails WinForms and WPF. Now, I'm going to spend most of my time talking about WinForms, and I'll leave you to do the WPF things.
Okay.
So let's take a look at some of the brand new controls. As with every release, we try and introduce something that's a little different, something that people have been asking for. And this release is certainly no different to that rule. We've got a Clipboard Manager control. We've got the tabbed pane and tabbed form controls. We've got some new animations on the progress bar and transition window that have been inspired by Office 2016 or Windows 10. We've also got a new calendar control that's been extracted from the date editor combo. But, and I'm not making light of the things that I've just said before, but there's a couple of really, really cool controls that I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody. In fact, we have a toolbox control and a diagram control. Now, the toolbox control came about because of the work we've done inside the diagram control. And I know that a lot of people have been asking for the diagram stuff, so I'm going to have a heap of fun showing you through some of that. But of course, Windows development isn't just about WinForms as much as I'd like it to be. And I'm sure people have already started asking the question, what about WPF?
Indeed, you're right. Windows development isn't just about WinForms, much as you, me, and a lot of customers accept that it's a great path to creating Windows applications. There's also the Universal Windows Platform for Windows 10, and then there's WPF. Now, for the former, we released our first library of controls only about 6-7 weeks ago, so there's obviously not much more we can say about UWP for now. But WPF, well, we have, as you can see there, the diagram control, and in fact, it's the same control, apart from being for WPF, as the WinForms one, and Paul will be showing that off. There's a camera control for WPF, a Clipboard Manager, much as there is for Windows Forms, I should say, and a great tree map control. And, drum roll, we have the Report Designer. Now, with regard to the latter, there's a couple of points I'd like to make. First, although we tried really, really hard, we weren't quite able to get the Report Designer to the point where it was fully stable and ready for use. In essence, we ran out of time. So although it's probably 95% done, there are a couple of problem edge cases that are still being fixed as we speak, and so we're going to be maintaining a beta status for the Report Designer for a few weeks more. Second, we basically have a whole webinar on reporting tomorrow, Paul and myself, and so we're going to leave discussing the designer until then. And given the way that we're designing and implementing our more complex controls these days, we can take some great cross-platform opportunities when they arise. Hence, we have a number of similar enhancements to both platforms. So the grid control for both platforms has been enhanced. I'll be showing you some of the things in WPF. App UI Manager, the chart control will have enhanced with some new financial indicators. The layout control has gained some smarts, shall we say. We'll be seeing some of that. The map control has clustering of data to be displayed on top of the map. PDF viewer, which is, I know, close to Paul's heart.
It is, and the PDF viewer features the ability to display and include attachments. There's some fantastic work being done inside the API, performance improvements, and yes, I'm very passionate about my PDF control.
You mentioned performance improvements. We've added, We've added performance improvements, or we've improved performance across the whole line of controls here. Property grid control is an example. It's now faster to actually display information. The ribbon control, we've added some new features. Rich Editor, we'll be showing you some of that, some of the new features in that. The ability to comment within comments and exposing an API to see the structure of a rich text edit document. Scheduler control, performance improvements there. Snap reporting. Not quite sure what we've done for snap reporting, to be honest. That's WinForms. That's not my bit. Spreadsheet control, we've added pivot table, tree list, there's some changes there. MVVM scaffolding is again on the WinForm side, because obviously on WPF that's what you do. So with MVVM for WinForms, we've had it out for about a year now, a special library for MVVM within WinForms, because as everyone here knows, the traditional way of writing a WinForms application is to, design in the designer, add on click handlers for all your buttons, and basically, meld your operational type stuff of the view with your data and so on and so forth. The MVVM model view model allows you to separate the concerns of your application into separate areas.
And I think, Julian, I'd like to see feedback from both people on the call today and from anybody watching this on our YouTube channel as to how they see implementing MVVM in their WinForms applications, whether it's something that they're going to actively do, whether it's something that they've already started implementing, and really get a sense from the community as to how that approach is going to work. And it certainly does make development a lot easier using a valid pattern such as MVVM.
And of course, MVVM is available all over the place nowadays. I mentioned WPF uses MVVM. Our DevExtreme product, which you'll hear about on Thursday, that uses MVVM, but on the client side. Obviously, ASP.NET MVC is a different way of looking at MVVM, or if you like, MVVM is a different way of looking at MVC. All of these new paradigms for creating applications are all based upon this separation of what things do. And also on this list is we've added some application themes for both WinForms and WPF based upon Office 2016, and you'll be seeing those a little later on.
Now, as you mentioned, or as I mentioned, I'll take people through the WinForms controls, and then you can explain what's new in WPF.
Well, given that you're going first and talking about WinForms, I can basically jump in every now and again, say, it's the same for WPF. That means my bit at the end will be about 30 seconds long. But then,
which is why you're CTO.
Exactly. I'm upper management. You do the work. I do the directing.
Very good. So let's start by looking at what's new in WinForms for version 15.2. I'm going to show you everything inside the demo center that, of course, gets installed when you download and install either a trial or a full version. But it's interesting, I still receive a lot of emails from people asking, do we supply source code, or where can you find the source code for our demos? So I just want to very quickly show you where that is. So if I bring up my hard drive, I'm going to navigate to the C drive, and first of all just head to the users folder. Now the trick here is that we install everything into the public folder. So locate your public user, and then locate the documents folder, and you'll see for each of the versions you've installed, you have a DevExpress demos folder. If you jump into the 15.2 components, you'll then see all of the different technologies. Of course, I'm interested in WinForms. I've got the main WinForms demos, so everything from the DevAV, hybrid app, etc. And if I want to drill down to the more individual demos, I've got either a C# folder or a VB folder, depending on which your language preference is. If I come into the C# folder, you'll see a folder for each of the individual demos. Now we were talking just before about the MVVM. If you wanted to take a look at it, drill down, and you'll see the solution file. Open it the same as you would normally in Visual Studio, and you can start pulling things apart.
And the other important thing to note is that we do ship the source to the demos with the evaluation version as well. So if you want to evaluate our controls and see how to use them within an actual application, the source code is available as part of the install for the trial version.
So I'm going to be working inside the WinForms demo application. A couple of quick things here. If I want to work with a list and see each of the individual demos, I can switch to the list mode, or I can go back to summary. And of course, I can search for demos by a keyword. So I'm going to start out by showing you the clipboard formats, and I'll quickly search for clipboard. Now, the clipboard formatting tool works for both our data grid and our tree view control. So if I launch the clipboard format demo here, we're going to see on the left-hand side, we've got a standard data grid with some elements in here, and obviously we've got conditional formatting. I'm just going to highlight a couple of rows, hit on the copy paste, and on the right-hand side you're going to see a number of different formats. Now, in actual fact, the Clipboard Manager supports BIF8, which is XLS, RTF, HTML, and CSV. So we can see in this top element we've got a spreadsheet control embedded, and everything's been copied across, including all the conditional formatting. The same goes for the rich text format, which is obviously inside our rich text edit control. And then finally, inside a web view, we've got the HTML format. If I quickly resort this data and then grab a few more lines just to show you, copy and paste, you'll see that immediately we're going to see that formatting. Now, there are some options available inside the control. You can actually turn on whether you want copying to be valid at all, so you could disable copying. And then you can nominate the types of formats that you want to support for your export. So CSV, Excel, HTML, RTF, and TXT. You can also switch your clipboard mode between formatted, plain, and plain text. You can nominate whether you want to include the collapse data when you actually do a copy. And of course, whether you want to use the copy column headers. So if I say turn this off, and then I do a copy and paste again, I now see just the raw data and no header. And if you're doing large volumes of copying, then you can actually have the automatic progress indicator shown, or you could control that yourself as well. I'll just make a quick call out to a couple of the new themes while we're inside this demo. We've got the Office 2016 colorful theme, and of course the Office 2016 dark theme. So they're shipping inside WinForms, as well as obviously all the standard themes that are available. Now, because I think heading towards Christmas, I love showing the Christmas theme. Some people, yeah, obviously snow doesn't apply to us here in Brisbane, but it's still pretty. A little bit more Colorado. Now, the tree view control works in pretty much the same way. If we've got the clipboard formatting, and again, I can highlight sections and I can copy and paste over to the other control, like so. Now, the documentation behind that says that the clipboard control is in CTP. I mean, you've seen it in use. It is really quite thorough. So I'll let Julian comment as to whether or when he thinks it's going to be released maybe as a full-fledged control.
I don't know, but I will point out that the Clipboard formatter or the Clipboard manager is also available in WPF.
That's going to get pretty old pretty quick if you try and skip all your demos.
Checking that off my list of things to show. Go on.
Now, what we have here is the transition manager. What I wanted to actually show is the tabbed pane control. Now, the tabbed pane control, you can think of it as a single document interface navigation manager. And what I mean by that is it's a control that owns a collection of pages and allows you to use these buttons to navigate between them. Only a single page can be active at any given time, and it allows you to quickly, and with a transition if you want, move between those elements. And here we can see the different type of pages that we've got built, and in actual fact I'm going to switch that to the indicator of line, and you can see that new indicator. I'll just turn it on and show it for a little bit longer using that Office inspired line indicator at the top there. So that's really quite nice as well. Next, I want to highlight the calendar control. See, as far as calendars go, we've been using this inside the drop-down combo for quite some time. But now you can actually drop this calendar control directly onto your WinForm element. What's really nice is you can control exactly how many wide or how many high the control shows. So it allows you to see multiple months. The main idea behind the calendar control is not only to be able to select an individual date, you can select a range of dates. Unfortunately, given our screen size, it's hidden at the bottom here, but you can see that it's returning a selected range for what I want. You can also turn on things like the time editing, so you can come through and actually update a particular time you want, and the time control defaults to your system time. You can turn on or off other elements, such as what day of the week is going to be shown first, whether you want inactive days to be shown or hidden, or just the first and last days. You've got the ability to turn on and off things like the header control, whether you want the clear button to be shown, and of course that's embedded inside the footer, so you'd need to have that on as well. And you could also show week numbers, which I find particularly useful when planning sprints and things like that. So another great little tool to add to the editor arsenal. What I do want to do is spend a little bit of time showing you the major two elements that we talked about. Now, the best way to show you the toolbox control is going to be to actually explain the diagram control as well. It is one of the most widely asked for features and has been for some time. In fact, and I'll mention it again a little bit later on, but there's a customer that I deal with here in Australia that's been hounding me since I started with DevExpress as to when are we going to get a diagram control. Now, Julian, I know there's been a lot of debates internally about this over the years, so I'm proud to be presenting this.
I believe this actually, I'm just going to reveal a little secret to our audience today. I believe there's actually somebody's pet project, and he wrote it in his spare time, and then he brought it into the office, and we all went, uh-oh, we have a diagram control. So, a few more weeks of work later, or months of work later, and suddenly we can do things like we can do some pretty remarkable things with our diagram control.
That we can. I've got a couple of basic diagrams to show you, and remember that what we're looking at here is the ability to embed this type of functionality directly into your end user applications. So here we're looking at the canvas, we're looking at a basic flowchart, but straight away I can use my mouse scroll wheel and you can see that I've got scrolling capabilities. Yes, you can control things like rulers, zooms, and I'll step through some of those in a minute. What's really nice is the fact that you can highlight or select multiple elements. You've got all the cool things that you'd expect, the ability to rotate controls. You can obviously just double click. As I'm saying obviously, I mean, for me it just feels natural to be able to double click and start editing data like that. So yeah, here's Mr. Bucknall. We're going to change the font to black, and editing features such as font size. I can resize the elements. You'll notice here, as I start to resize, it introduces things, indicators to let me know that, hey, this is the same size now as other elements, which I think just gives it that added polish. If I start to move things around, you can see a green line showing me that those items are now centered, or if I come here, you can see that I'm snapped to the same elements as other items on the page. So it has a really nice polished feel to it. As well as being able to edit the main objects, obviously I can do things like double-click on a connector line and edit the text there as well. I can move connector lines around, and when I snap it, you'll see that there's some nice algorithms being implemented to allow me to just snap to other objects. Again, it just has this really nice polished look and feel. Now, in actual fact, the diagram control comes with 110 or more than 110 shape controls already included. That includes the basic, the flowchart, it includes arrows, SDL diagram shapes, software icons. If you've ever used Visio, it's got that immediate feel to it. Here we can see another quick example showing a circular diagram. As I move things around, I can bring my object to the front, do all the things that you'd expect with this style of designer. Along with things such as the 15 predefined connector arrows, it's got the automatic shape layouts, but best of all, as we've seen with our Word-inspired controls, as we've seen with our Excel-inspired controls, you can provide an end-user designer. Now, this can be invoked directly from within the control itself, so you don't have to build it, it's automatically available. I mentioned to start with the toolbox control. And this is exactly why it came to pass, as we can see on the left. Here we've got the ability to collapse it, and straight away you'll see that the elements are then turned into their shortened or graphical format on the left. I can expand, and I can turn different things on or off. So if I expand the toolbar now, you can implement this same functionality of a toolbox directly into your next application. Drag elements in, I can resize. So it's a fully functioning end-user designer. It's got the ability to save documents, you can recall documents. From the right-hand side, you can see as I look on the arrow that I just dragged in, I can also control the behavior. So I can have the user not allowed to copy and paste, or not allowed to delete it or move it. You can control every aspect. So if you imagine using this inside a workflow scenario, where you're having the document itself generated automatically using the code-first approach, which we'll look at in a second, you can lock a lot of things down from the user. And again, the client that I've been talking to over here absolutely loves the concept and has been playing with it from the beta that we released and is really, really excited with what it actually allows people to do. I'll close the end-user designer and let's take a look at what's involved in the code-first side of things. Now, you imagine the workflow scenario. You want to be able to generate a set of diagrams showing all the different aspects that can be presented to an end user. You can do all of it directly inside the code. What's really nice with this particular demo is anything I change down in this code page is going to be automatically updated here. So for example, creating a page size is just specifying the new size object. Specifying the grid size on the diagram control, working with the options view properties, grid size, again specify a size object. I'm going to change this to 150 by 150, and in a couple of seconds you're going to see the effect of that code change. So you can play around with the API without having to get bogged down inside Visual Studio and creating your own project. You can control every aspect of the user experience by working with the properties. So if I want to turn the grid on, I'm just going to update that to true, and we can see the grid can be turned on or off. Zooming programmatically. You can control the zoom factor in and out. Same thing. Let's change that to say 0.6 on both. So now when I zoom in, it's jumping in increments of 0.6. Let's just step through each of these different API elements. You can see just how thorough or how complete the actual API is. And it could be that you've implemented this really nice design inside your application, but you might want to provide the option to edit that layout to an administrator. So very easily, with a one line of code, which is diagramcontrol.runDesigner, you can invoke that entire end-user design experience. So you could still keep the functionality away from just general users and provide it to a power user or an administrator. You don't have to sit there and create the UI, you just invoke it from within the control. Now, to give you an idea as to some of the shapes that are incorporated into the control, by default, as I said, there's more than 110. And this little demo here will let you step through and see all the different shapes. You can resize things at code. You've got the ability to look at all the different arrow styles. There's just so many different features built into the control and make it usable straight out of your toolbox. For example, I'll come along and move something. I've got the ability to undo that move. So full undo, redo management. If you're wanting to build something that's interactive for your end users, you'll see this label over here represents where my mouse hit is actually going, and you can see each time I move over an element. So I can programmatically interact with anything the user's doing. There's multiple themes built into the control straight away. I'll just let that cycle through a few of them for now. You've also got the ability to do custom shapes. So if we have a look at the control here, you can work through every element. So whether it's building your next organization chart or providing workflow analysis, or even just giving your end user a look and feel of a Visio-styled control, it's now available out of your toolbox. Anything you want to add to that, Julian?
I'm sorry, Paul, I was replying to questions in the background. No, I don't have anything to add, apart from it's available in WPF.
Interesting that there are some extra samples in WPF if you wanted to share those later. Now, as well as the new controls, there are a lot of changes or a lot of updates, enhancements to many of the other controls. I'm not going to spoil all of Julian's fun because I do think it's important to share some of the WPF goodness, and sometimes we focus too heavily on just WinForms. So when you're working inside this demo center, you do have the ability to simply step through and see what's new, what's been updated. One of the things that I blogged about recently was, for example, the rich edit control and the API functionality. The fact that you can now work with individual text elements inside a document. You can apply specific diagrams or graphics on top of anything you want. So right now, if I wanted to say, okay, show me every row, the API has been extended to give you a lot deeper understanding or a lot more depth to exactly what's going on inside each individual part of the document that you're working with. So very, very powerful stuff. And again, I want to be careful because I do know what Julian is going to be showing and don't want to steal all of his thunder. Here's a quick.
I'll just point out that that's available in WPF as well. So
here's a quick look at the ring animation style, and we looked at the line one a little earlier. So that's available in the progress panels as well as the transition manager. It really is a lot of fun when you get hold of the 15.2 code to just start going through and looking at what's new, what's updated. And I think quite often as developers we get so engaged in what we're doing or so used to the controls we're using, sometimes we forget that there's a lot of new things that we can incorporate and make our UI a little bit smoother or a little bit nicer. So with that in mind, if I jump back to my slide deck, I think it's time to maybe let Julian explain a little bit more about what's happening in WPF. I just need to make sure I give the...
Indeed.
control
So
it over.
let's have a look at some of the new features in WPF. First of all, what I'm going to do is to jump into although I'm going to be start that again. Although I'm going to be talking about the grid first, I'm just going to talk about some of the extra features which are visible when we're using the grid. So I can show some of the new controls and features from elsewhere within WPF. So the first thing of all, I'm going to select the WPF demo here. And just like the WinForms version, we can either have the detailed look and view of the demos, or we can just do the summaries. I'm going to keep on the summaries for me. So we're going to go straight to data grid, very first item in the list. And one of the new features for the data grid is the inline edit form. Now, this allows the user to edit a row based upon an edit form that is displayed inside the grid boundaries itself. A couple of things to notice here. First of all, the template for this edit form was built using the layout controls. So the fields are spaced attractively, they and the prompts are lined up, and so on and so forth. There have been some new features to the layout control in version 15.2, such as the ability to generate layout items for all fields in the data source, and so on. We'll look at another new feature in a little moment. Secondly, we've added a new control to the WPF suite that gives access to the PC's camera, the webcam. So great tool for when you need it, and here we see it's actually part of the image editor. So I'm in a grid, and I'm going to take a picture from the camera. And now, as we can see, Paul's webcam comes on. Hello, Mum. It doesn't really look like a car, and it's dark in Brisbane at the moment, so I think we'll just cancel that.
I'm saying nothing, Julian.
Next new feature I'd like to show you with the data grid is grid-based reporting. Now, with only a few lines of code, you're going to be able to invoke the DevExpress WPF report designer from the grid control and create reports based on its data. So what I'm going to do is a simple enough little demo here. It's basically showing the grouping available within the grid. This has been available for a long time. So we have a simple grid here showing data grouped by country and grouped by city. Now, if I click on reports over here, one of the options is show designer. Now, I'm sure you already knew that you could export or print a grid and the output would have the same data sorted and grouped in the same manner as the grid. But now we've added a middleman should you need it, and that's the report designer. So let me click on show designer here. What's going to happen is the report designer comes up. Notice that the grid has passed on the sorting and grouping settings to the designer, and the designer has created this new report template, and the designer is showing it. I didn't have to do anything like say, oh, I wanted it grouped by country and then city within country, and here's the data I want to do. The grid itself has passed that information on. So as I'm sure you can appreciate, from here you can add things like a watermark to your report. You can save the resulting template. You can preview the report. Here we go, print preview, which is exactly the functionality we had before. So exactly the same data, exactly in the same format. And from here you can, export it, or maybe even, shock horror, print it on an actual piece of paper. So I'm sure you can appreciate this is an excellent new feature. Yeah, you can just print or export a grid as before, but with a few lines of code, you now have this extra ability to make changes to the report layout before you export or print. And this also shows the report designer within WPF. As I said earlier on, we're going to be discussing this more tomorrow in our reporting and dashboards webinar. So with that, oh yes, and again, it's still in beta, even though we're just about to release 15.2 this week, cough, kickoff. It will be released officially in early 2016 as part of a minor release. So having said that, here we are back in the groupings demo. As Paul showed you, before I leave this particular demo, I'd like to show you the new themes we've added to WPF. So we have two particular categories. One is classic, the other one is touch, and there are three new themes in each of these categories. As the Office 2016 white, which isn't going to show very much here. They're based upon the new Office 2016 look and feel. In this particular demo, because it's so simple, the visual differences are admittedly slight. So let me just jump back, and let's look at the themes now within a, if you like, a proper application, a proper demo application, a real-world application as we used to call it. And here we are. This is the DevAV application, and I can basically go to the view here, jump up, a bit too far, and show the new Office 2016 themes. So let's just click on the 2016 black theme, and there it goes. And if I switch back, let's kill that. I am using Paul's machine from afar, from several thousand miles away. So, and here's the colorful theme.
And unfortunately, GoToWebinar takes a little while to render things as well.
That's true. That's true. So here's the 2016 colorful theme. So as you can see, the themes are available for not only a classic type application, but also a touch application, where the biggest difference is the touch targets are larger so that they're easier to hit with a finger on a touch screen. So let's just kill that particular application. Now, next up, the thing I want to show you is the new tree map control. Here it is. This control is a dashboard type control that helps you visualize flat or hierarchical structured data as a set of nested rectangles that are both sized and ordered according to some field that you're measuring on. That's pretty much a mouthful, but when you see the result, I think it's intuitively obvious what's going on. So here we are. As an example, using some flat data. It's a list of billionaires sorted and grouped by country, age, and net wealth. So as you can see here, the data is initially sorted by first by country. So we have United States, India, Germany, France, United Kingdom, and so on and so forth. And then aggregated by age into decades. So we have 50 to 60 years, 70 to 80, 60, and so on and so forth. And then sized, the individual rectangles are sized by net wealth. Now you can.
I'm not seeing you there, Julian.
Well, I don't want to reveal my age. That was the biggest issue here, I think. And yes, billionaire. I'll also notice there is no Australia here, so obviously Paul is not going to be shown. Let's just view some of the options available. So I'm basically grouping by residence or country and the age, and I can just look at grouped by age, for example. So it's fairly flat data, in fact, very flat data, and all I'm doing is allowing the tree map control to do its work. And let's just jump out. You notice, possibly as I was showing that particular diagram, that there is the ability to hover, and the highlighted rectangle is shown in a different way, so we're basically hatching. So as I just hover over things, this particular demo shows that the rectangles are also selectable. So if I want to see Brazil, I can click on Brazil. Notice the map control is automatically updated, so there's a link between the rectangle and the map control, and also the chart down here, the history chart, is updated as I click through. So the rectangles are selectable, and also you can select them from outside the control if you like. So here I'm clicking on the map control, and Canada gets highlighted. So the difficult thing about using a tree map control is the colorization of it. What we've done is we provided a method of coloring the rectangles using several different algorithmic colorizers. What we have here, we have the colorizers by group gradient. This is the first one we're showing here. So basically you're saying, okay, for this particular group, I want to go from a dark purple to a light purple. And so the rectangle's color changes according to the gradient. And so we have a kind of brown or khaki type gradient from the biggest to the smallest. Here is a blue one, biggest to the smallest, and a kind of pinkish one, and so on and so forth. So that's the group gradient. Each group is a separate gradient. There's the palette colorizer, where you basically say, okay, the largest one is going to be in this fluorescent green, the next largest is going to be this green, the next largest is going to be this green, and that green, and finally into a blue. So as you see, that palette is replicated across each of the groups. The range colorizer basically tries to group, it's like the palette colorizer, but it tries to group rectangles into different colors. So we have the same color here, we have the same color here, and so on and so on and so forth. And we get, with more detail, we get more colors, kind of thing. And then there's the simple gradient colorizer, where each group has the same gradient, and here we're doing a gradient from black to white. So black is the biggest, white is the smallest, black is the biggest, white is the smallest, and so on and so forth. So that's the tree map control.
Now that'd be a great tool to use in say a disk sizing application or something like that.
In fact, that's almost the canonical version of a tree map. Is very early on. I seem to remember it even in DOS days, because it was easy to draw rectangles in DOS. You could show the files on your hard drive and size the rectangles accordingly.
What's this DOS you talk of?
Oh, it's old people like me. We remember those things. The other thing we can do,
right?
yeah. Oh, yes, I remember those too. In fact, I think I have a stack of punch cards in the basement. So we can also, you can also add icons and images and text and so on and so forth to customize the tree map that are produced. So here is a list of the awards or the medals given away at the recent Winter Olympics, and so we can click on and show tooltips, for example, and you can specify what the tooltip is going to be showing. As you see, we have little icons here. So this is cross-country skiing, this is alpine skiing, and so on and so forth. So tree map control, great for dashboard type applications. If you need to show, quickly show some data in a visual way that represents what's the measurement you're showing is all about. Now, earlier on, I mentioned that the layout manager had been improved with some new features, and one being the ability to generate the layout items at design time from the fields in the data source. Well, here's another time-saving feature for developers, is the control can actually generate a functioning filter UI based upon some settings that you're going to be providing. So here we have a simple grid with a templated row showing basically data about a set of cars. And as we flip through, you can see that we're showing things like price and body style. We're showing miles per gallon, the efficiency of the car, and so on and so forth. Now, what we did as part of this demo is we provided some attributes to the layout manager so we could generate a filter UI based upon the actual data in this grid. So here's the filter UI. I didn't write this, nobody wrote it, the layout manager did, if you like. And all we basically said is that, price, we want a range control. Oh, and by the way, you calculate the minimum and maximum. I don't want to go through my data and work out which is which. So automatically, the layout manager has provided the values here. So if I want to go from, say, 20,000, there we go. And all we're showing now is data in that particular range. The filter, the layout manager has created the filter UI for a checkbox list here. So I can select, say, Honda and Audi, which is what me and my wife have. And there we go. We're just showing Audi and Honda. I didn't have to do any coding for this particular filter UI. And here we have radio buttons and yet more checkboxes and radio buttons as we go through. So a great little feature, quick and easy for you, the developer, to provide for your users a filter UI to go along with your data.
And also available in WinForms.
Jolly good, jolly good. Okay, let's not too much more, because I've got too much more time here. So I'd like to show you some of the smaller and yet no less important features that we've added. So we have on the rich text editor, briefly mentioned this before, we have the ability now not only to allow your users to add comments to a document. Let me just auto-hide this. But also have the ability to provide comments on comments. So here we have a comment, and here we have a comment about that particular comment. So it's also about the same part of the document. So nested comments are available. Paul mentioned this earlier on, the layout API. So this basically gives you in code the ability to examine the structure of your document, or the document inside the rich text editor. So I can use this handy tree over here and start drilling into the various elements that make up this particular document. So this particular row, and as you notice, the document itself is, or the editor itself is showing the various bits and pieces as I click on the items within the structure, within the tree list, which is the structure of the document. So rich API for accessing the elements of document structure. Quickly back to the demos page. I haven't got too much time left here. So map control. Yeah, let's go back to the map control. Let's. This is kind of a fun thing. Where am I? I've lost my map. There it is. And this is a new clustering feature available in the map control. This basically allows you to increase the readability of the data that's been displayed in the map, to analyze the data density by aggregating the data using clustering features. So what this example is showing is tree density in an area of Ballarat near Melbourne in Australia.
Well, you say near, it's a relative term.
Relative term.
And I've got to say, the last time I visited Ballarat, the lake did not look anything like that. It was almost dry.
Yes, well, fortunately Australia is suffering from drought situation, but I don't know when this data was actually produced, but it's being aggregated by the map control. So if I zoom out, you're going to see fewer trees, which are the aggregated data, being shown. So there we are. There's a few. And if I zoom in, you'll see more cluster of data. Let's go a bit further. And so, there we go. And you can not only see the clustering going on, but you can also see the tree density based upon the color in this chart and so on.
Also available in WinForms.
Also available in WinForms. Excellent news. Another thing I'm going to show you, which is also available in WinForms, and it's probably the last one I'll be able to get to today, is the charting control now has a complete set of features for financial charts. We always had the open, close, stock type charts. We've added a lot more indicators for the financial side of the charting control. Invaluable for those apps that display and analyze stock type data. So we've got trend and regression lines here, various bizarre Fibonacci type lines that you can add to your stock charts. I'm not quite sure how those are supposed to convey information, but then I don't really trade stocks. Moving averages, simple type moving averages here, weighted ones, exponentials, and so on and so forth. We can even show envelope type things. So this is the moving average of the upper, the moving average of the lower, and we can see the inside moving average, if you like. And this is where it gets really bizarre for me. I have no idea what these do, but I imagine that if you need them, you'll know what they are. So we have things like Chaikin's volatility. Whoa! It's a good job I don't have to depend on this for a living. That's all I can say. The Williams percent R.
The feedback on the blog post has been really quite exciting on these new financial indicators. But at the same time, people have been asking for other chart types. And it's a good time to stress the fact that new features we add is based on that feedback we get from everybody. So if there's a particular chart type you're looking for, log a ticket in the support center. The team's monitoring it every day to see what's requested. The more people that request the same feature, more likely you're going to see it in an up-and-coming update.
Indeed, that applies to anything you want or need or require. Please let us know through the support channel. We basically categorize support tickets through issues that we have to solve or features that people would like. Last quick thing that I want to show you here is the spreadsheet now has support for pivot tables, and this basically makes it easy to analyze, categorize, summarize large volumes of data in your spreadsheet. You can dynamically manage the field source fields by using the various lists that we have. So, for example, let's take the product out of this, drag it back, so the rows now just show customer and category, and you can sort, filter these items, expand, collapse level details. So there's a whole plethora of pivot table type functionality available within the spreadsheet control under a different ribbon item there. And that, I'm afraid, is it. We've come to the end. So let me give control back to Paul. There have been questions, I know. I've got the questions pane open on the side. I'm afraid we don't really have enough time to answer all of these. So what I'm going to suggest Paul and I do, probably tomorrow, is to put up all these questions in a blog post and answer them there in a blog post. What do you reckon, Paul?
Take off mute. That's after our other webinar, of course.
Yes, indeed. There are 2 more webinars in this series on what's new in 15.2. Tomorrow, same time, same channel, December 2nd, is what's new for reporting and dashboards. And then that's with Paul and myself. And on December 3rd, which is Thursday, what's new for HTML and mobile and DevExtreme and all that kind of good stuff. And that's with Mehul Hari and Don Wibier.
For a bit of a sneak preview on what's new in reporting, we will be showing off the new Excel data source. I'll let you think about that one for a day until we demo it. Of course, we love your feedback. We've got the DevExpress Twitter handle, we've got the DevExpress Facebook page, there's my Twitter and Julian's Twitter accounts there, and of course you can reach out to us at any time via email, as a number of you already do, and we do love to hear from you. So.
Yep, indeed. Please give us your feedback.
And with that, we can hand back to Amanda.
Awesome. Thank you both. All right, everybody. Like they mentioned, you can check out all of our launch week webinars at devexpress.com/webinars. All webinars are at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Like they mentioned, Wednesday is what's new for reporting and dashboards tomorrow, and Thursday is what's new for HTML5 and mobile. And again, today's webinar will also be available later on our DevExpress YouTube channel. I just posted that link in the chat box. And that is it for this one. Thank you so much to Julian and Paul. Thank you all for joining us. And of course, thank you for choosing DevExpress. Bye-bye.